My family kicked me out 24 hours before my sats for my sister's wedding, but when I told her fiancé the truth, the wedding was canceled, and they never saw my revenge coming. I'm 17 years old. I'm in my senior year of high school, and what happened a few months ago basically destroyed my family. Or, well, what was left of it. The thing is, I always knew my parents preferred my sister Amanda. That wasn't any secret. But I never imagined they would go so far as to literally kick me out of the house right before my SAT exams, just to give my room to guests for her wedding. And when I say literally, I mean they gave me 24 hours notice. Like, pack your stuff and leave, because we need your room for Aunt Merrill and Uncle Bob, or whoever's coming from her fiancé, Thomas's side. I guess I should start from the beginning so this makes sense. Amanda was always the golden child of the family, 5 years older than me, perfect at everything, got good grades without trying too hard, was captain of the cheerleading squad, had a million friends, that type of person. And I was, I don't know, the invisible middle child that nobody really noticed unless I did something wrong. My parents went to all of Amanda's events, like all of them, even rehearsals for her dance recitals when she was like 8 years old. But when I had a soccer game or a presentation at school, there was always some excuse for why they couldn't go. That they had to work, that they were tired, that they'd already seen one before, so why go to another? I grew up used to that. Honestly, I thought that's just how things were, and that was it. When Amanda announced her engagement to Thomas like a year and a half ago, my parents went crazy with happiness. Thomas is a decent guy, works in finance or something like that, makes good money, and my parents acted like their daughter had won the lottery. From that moment, everything in the house revolved around the wedding. All the time it was Amanda. This, the wedding, that. We need to do this for the wedding. We need to buy that for the wedding. And there I was in my room trying to study for the SATs because, you know what I mean? Those exams are important if you want to get into a decent university. And I needed a full scholarship because there was no way my parents were going to pay for my college when they were already spending thousands of dollars on this ridiculous wedding. The SATs were scheduled for a specific Saturday in March, and I'd been preparing for months, taking online courses, doing practice exercises every night after school, sacrificing hangouts with my friends on weekends to study. My parents knew this. I mean, it wasn't a secret. I'd told them like 1,000 times that date was super important to me, but apparently not important enough for them to remember it when they decided that same weekend would be perfect for a bunch of out-of-town guests arriving for the wedding that was like 2 weeks later. So, one Wednesday night, I'm in my room studying math, because that's my weakest section, and my mom comes in without knocking. She never knocked, and tells me, "Riley, we need to talk." And I'm like, "Okay, what's up?" And she sits on my bed and drops this bomb on me that they need my room for wedding guests this weekend, and that I have to pack my stuff and find somewhere else to stay until after the wedding. I just sat there staring at her like, "Are you kidding?" Because honestly, I thought it was a joke. I told her, "Mom, my SATs are this Saturday. I can't go anywhere. I need to sleep well. I need to be calm. I need to concentrate." And she just tells me, "Well, you'll have to figure it out. Amanda needs these rooms for her guests, and there's no space for you. No space for me. In my own house. The house where I'd lived my entire life." I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach, you know? I tried to reason with her. Told her I could sleep on the couch, that I could stay in the garage, anything. I just needed to be home for this exam that was literally one of the most important of my life. But she stood firm, said no, that the guests needed all the available space and that I was old enough to fend for myself for a few days. I asked my dad later, and he basically said the same thing, to stop being dramatic and to find somewhere to stay, that it was just for a weekend. I tried calling Amanda, thinking that maybe she could talk to them, because, it was her wedding, right? Maybe she didn't know they were kicking me out. I called her that same night, almost crying already, and explained the situation. You know what she told me? She said, and I remember this word for word because it's burned into my brain. She said, "Riley, if you don't have anywhere to stay, you can live on the street for all I care. My wedding is more important than your stupid exams." And she hung up. Just like that. Her younger sibling calling her practically desperate, and her telling me I could live on the street. That's when I realized they really didn't care. None of them. It wasn't just favoritism or ignoring me a little. It was that they genuinely didn't care what happened to me as long as it didn't interfere with their plans. I sat in my room that night, staring at the ceiling, thinking, okay, what do I do now? I had like 36 hours to find a place to stay, pack all my stuff, and somehow stay calm and focused for the most important exam I'd taken in my life. The first thing I did was call my best friend. Let's call her Sarah, because I don't want to use her real name. I told her everything that was happening and she didn't even hesitate. She told me, come to my house, my parents won't have any problem. And she was right. Sarah's parents are literally the kindest people I've ever met. When I explained the situation to them and he admitted I cried a little while doing it, which was super embarrassing, they just hugged me and told me I could stay as long as I needed. Sarah's mom even prepared the guest room for me, put on clean sheets, told me to make myself at home, and her dad helped me bring my stuff when I went for them the next day. When I went back to my house to pack, my parents, they weren't even there. They were at some meeting with the wedding coordinator or something. I packed all my clothes, my books, my laptop, my SAT study materials, everything I could fit into 2 large suitcases and my backpack. I felt like I was on autopilot. Like I couldn't really process it. I was just doing the mechanical movements of folding clothes and putting things in suitcases. Sarah and her dad came to help me, and he kept saying things like, "This isn't right. Do your parents know what they're doing?" And I just nodded because I didn't trust my voice to speak without breaking. The days before the SATs were weird. I tried to study but couldn't concentrate. I kept thinking about how my own parents had kicked me out of the house without caring about anything. Sarah's mom noticed I was having trouble and sat with me one night and told me, "Look, I know this is horrible, and it's not fair, but you can't let them ruin your SATs. Don't give them that power. They already took your lekletting. Home. Don't let them take your future too." And she was right, She was completely right. So I tried to compartmentalize everything, to put all those feelings of betrayal and anger in a mental box and focus only on the exam. Saturday came, and honestly, I don't remember much about the day, except that I was shaking during the entire exam, not from cold, but from pure anxiety and stress. But I did it. I completed all the sections, even the math one that worried me so much. When I left the testing center, I felt like I'd been run over by a truck. I was mentally and emotionally exhausted. Sarah was waiting for me outside with coffee and a donut, and she hugged me without saying anything, which was exactly what I needed. That night, calmer and with some mental clarity, I started thinking about Thomas. He'd always been kind to me, like the few times he'd been at the house for family dinners or whatever. He always asked me how school was going, how my college plans were going. He seemed genuinely interested. And I started thinking, does he know what happened? Does he know that Amanda literally told me I could live on the street? Because he didn't seem like the type of person who would be okay with that. So I sent him a message. I explained the whole situation, from my parents giving me 24 hours to leave to the call with Amanda, where she told me the wedding was more important than my exams. I sent him screenshots of our text messages where she literally wrote the thing about living on the street. I didn't expect him to respond quickly because I figured he was busy with all the pre-guest arrival wedding craziness, but he responded in like 20 minutes. He told me he had no idea about any of this, that he thought I'd volunteered to stay with a friend to give space to the guests, that's what Amanda had told him. What happened next was like a nuclear bomb in my family. Thomas confronted Amanda that same night, and apparently there was a massive fight. He asked her directly why she'd kicked me out of the house and why she'd said those horrible things to me, and you know what she answered? She said she'd done it because she found me annoying and didn't want to deal with me during her special weekend. She didn't even try to say it was our parents' decision or that it had been a misunderstanding. She just admitted that she thought I was annoying and didn't want me around. She said she'd always found having a younger sibling annoying, and that this was her chance to have her special moment without me being there in the way. Thomas told me all this by message that same night, and added at the end, "I can't marry someone who treats their family like this, especially a minor." He told Amanda that the wedding was called off until they could resolve this, and that they needed couples therapy because clearly there were serious things she needed to work on about empathy and responsibility. The next day, Sunday, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. First it was my mom, then my dad, then my mom again, everyone calling and leaving increasingly desperate voicemails. I was like in shock, so I didn't answer any calls. I just listened to them ring. Sarah and her parents were with me, and Sarah's dad told me, "You don't have to talk to them if you don't want to, but you should at least listen to the messages to know what they want." So I put the messages on speaker. My mom was literally crying in one of the messages saying, "Riley, please, you have to fix this. You have to talk to Thomas. You have to tell him it was all a misunderstanding. Your sister's wedding is ruined because of you." My dad left a similar message but angrier, basically blaming me for causing drama and ruining this special day for Amanda. And then my mom called again and left a message that made my blood boil. She said, "And you better not post anything about this on your social media or on the internet. We don't need people knowing our private business." I mean, seriously, they kicked me out of my house. My sister told me I could live on the street, and what worried them was that I might tell the story online. They hadn't even asked me how I was, if I'd had somewhere to stay, how my sats that they'd effectively sabotaged had gone. They only cared about saving face and making sure Amanda's wedding went ahead, as if nothing had happened. That's when I made a decision. I called my paternal grandparents, my dad's parents, who live like 5 states away. They'd never been very involved in my life because they live far away, and my dad wasn't very good at keeping in touch with them, but they'd always been kind to me the few times I saw them. I told them everything. And not just about the wedding weekend, but everything, everything. Years of being ignored, of favoritism toward Amanda, of feeling invisible in my own family, of how my achievements never mattered. But every little thing Amanda did was celebrated, like she'd discovered the cure for cancer. My grandparents were silent for a long moment after I finished talking, and then my grandmother started crying. She said they had no idea things were this bad, that my dad had always told them everything was fine, that we were a happy family. My grandfather was furious. I could hear it in his voice. He said they were going to fix this, that they were coming and that there were going to be serious consequences for my dad and mom. I also called my maternal grandparents, my mom's parents, and had a similar conversation. They live closer, but my grandmother is sick. She has heart problems and can't travel much, so I didn't see them as often as I would have liked. My maternal grandfather went crazy when I told him what had happened, said he was going to call my mom immediately and that this was unacceptable. My grandmother got on the phone after. Her voice sounded weak, but she was clearly upset too. She told me she loved me and that she was so sorry she hadn't known before how bad things were. The next few days were an absolute whirlwind. My paternal grandparents literally bought plane tickets and came to town. They stayed at a hotel and took me to dinner that first night, and it was super emotional because I basically broke down completely and told them things I didn't even know bothered me that much. Like when I turned 13 and my parents completely forgot my birthday because they were planning Amanda's high school graduation party. Or when I won an award at the science fair and no one from my family went to the ceremony. Or all the nights I spent alone at home because they were at some Amanda event. Everything came out like a torrent, and my grandparents just hugged me and let me cry. Meanwhile, my maternal grandparents were calling my mom every day, pressuring her, and my paternal grandfather confronted my dad in person. He went to the house and there was a massive argument. The neighbors probably heard everything. My grandfather told my dad he was a disgrace as a father, that how dare he kick his minor child out of the house. That what kind of person does that? My dad tried to defend his actions, saying it was only for a few days and that I was being dramatic. But my grandfather didn't buy any of it. Amanda posted on Facebook like a week after all this, announcing that the wedding was postponed indefinitely due to unforeseen circumstances. The comments were full of people asking what had happened, and she didn't respond to any of them. I saw the post because Sarah showed me. I'd already deleted all my immediate family from my social media by that point. My paternal grandparents worked with Sarah's parents to make permanent arrangements for me. Legally, I couldn't live alone because I was a minor, but Sarah's parents said they'd be happy to be my temporary guardians until I turned 18 or graduated high school. There was a bunch of legal paperwork involved, and my parents had to sign things giving permission for me to live with another family. At first, they refused. They said everyone was being ridiculous and that I could come back home. But my grandparents pressured them hard, threatened to report them to social services for child neglect if they didn't sign the papers. Eventually they signed, I think because they realized this wasn't going to go away and that they'd really damaged their relationship with me, possibly irreparably. My paternal grandparents gained primary legal custody of me, which was important for things like medical decisions and school documents. But physically, I was still living with Sarah's family because my grandparents lived too far away and didn't want me to change schools in my senior year. Like a month after all the drama, Amanda and Thomas officially announced they'd broken up and the wedding was canceled. Not postponed, canceled. Amanda blamed me publicly for this, posted something passive-aggressive on social media about how families should support each other in special moments and how some people are so selfish they ruin others' happiness. A lot of people who knew the real story commented defending me, basically telling her she dug her own grave with her actions. Eventually, she deleted the post. My parents tried to contact me several times in the following months, sent text messages saying they wanted to talk, that they missed having me at home, that things could go back to normal. But they never apologized. Not once. They never said sorry for kicking you out before your exams. Sorry for years of making you feel invisible. Sorry for prioritizing your sister over you at every opportunity. They just wanted things to go back to how they were, for me to forgive and forget and go back to being the ignored but convenient child I'd always been. I decided I didn't want that. I decided I deserved better. So I stopped responding to their messages, and eventually they stopped sending so many. Now I occasionally get a message like, on my birthday or Christmas. Generic messages they probably send because they feel obligated, not because they really care. Sarah's family became my real family. I go to their family gatherings. I spend holidays with them. Her grandmother calls me grandson and sends me $20 on my birthday. Sarah's parents never made me feel like a burden or a guest. They genuinely treated me like another son. When my SAT results came in May, Sarah's mom cried with pride because I scored high enough to qualify for full scholarships at several universities. They threw a little celebration party for me with cake and everything. Nobody from my biological family contacted me to ask how I'd done. My grandparents continue to be a constant presence in my life. My paternal grandparents fly to visit me every 2 months or so. They stay at their usual hotel and we spend the weekend together. They helped me apply to universities. My grandfather reviewed all my application essays, and my grandmother helped me put together a budget for college expenses. My maternal grandparents call every week, and although my grandmother can't travel, we made arrangements for me to visit them during summer vacation. It's ironic because now I have closer relationships with my grandparents than I ever had with my parents. Amanda and I haven't spoken since that phone call where she told me I could live on the street. I know from my grandparents that she's dating someone new, but I'm not really interested. Sometimes I wonder if she ever reflects on what happened, if she ever realizes she lost her sibling for being so cruel and selfish. Probably not. People like her rarely accept responsibility for their actions. My parents are fine, from what I understand, living their lives as if nothing happened. I guess for them, it's easier to pretend nothing happened than to face the fact that they failed spectacularly as parents. Sometimes I still feel anger, especially when I see Sarah with her parents and see how they treat her with so much love and respect. It makes me think about everything. I missed out on growing up, but mostly I feel relief. Relief not to be in that toxic house. Relief not to have to walk on eggshells all the time. Relief to be with people who really care about me. I graduate from high school in a few weeks. I was accepted to my first-choice university with a full scholarship that covers tuition, room, and board. Sarah's parents are planning a graduation party for me, and my grandparents are coming. I invited my biological family out of courtesy more than anything. I sent the invitations because I felt I should, but none of them responded. I'm not surprised or particularly hurt by that. Honestly, I expected them not to come. It would be weird to have them there pretending to be a happy family when we all know the truth. Sarah's aunt, a super eccentric woman who lives in the suburbs and doesn't have internet, told me at the last family gathering that family isn't always blood. That real family is the people who choose you, and that you choose. I think she's right. Sarah's family chose me when my own biological family rejected me, and I chose them too. That's worth more than any blood connection. I still have difficult days where I wonder what I did wrong for my own parents to treat me like that. Days where I feel angry about all the years I wasted trying to earn their approval and attention. But those days are becoming less frequent. Mostly, I feel free and happy and excited about the future. I'm going to study engineering in college. I want to design bridges. There's something about building things that connect people that seems appropriate given everything that happened. Last week, my paternal grandparents took me to buy stuff for college. You know, sheets and towels and all those basic items you need for the dorm. We were at Target, and my grandmother asked me if I needed anything else, and I just hugged her and said thank you for everything. She got super emotional and said she only regretted not being more present before, that if they'd known how things were, they would have intervened much earlier. I told her it wasn't her fault, that my parents are experts at making everything look perfect from the outside. And it's true. Nobody really knew how things were behind closed doors except Amanda, and she didn't care. I'm okay now. Really. Better than okay. Honestly. I'm happier than I'd been in years. Less anxious. I sleep better at night. I don't have that constant feeling of walking on thin ice that I had living with my parents, where anything could become a problem or another opportunity for Amanda to shine while I faded into the background. I feel seen and valued and loved, and it turns out that makes a huge difference in how you feel about yourself and about life in general. Sometimes people ask me if I'll ever forgive my parents and Amanda. Honestly, I don't know. Part of me wants to believe that maybe someday there will be real apologies, acknowledgement of what they did. But I'm not waiting for that, and I no longer need their validation or approval to move forward with my life. That's enough for now, I guess.